Okay, starting with debug mode. So this is a application I'm going to use to show you how you can use debug mode to finish things. Um, so normally we're used to running things using this button right here, which is the normal run button. And so it'll run our code, let us see how it results in. It'll even give us errors, but it won't necessarily let us see where the error occurs. So for instance, I can run this. I see that I have a 404 error. If I go back to my page, I can assume it's because I don't have an endpoint for just slash, but I don't know. Now what's different is if we run things in debug mode. So if I stop my application and I run it using this button right here, the one that looks like a ladybug, or I guess that's what it's supposed to look like. Then I'm running it in debug mode. And what debug mode is it's a mode of running your program where you can see line by line what's happening. Now, normally it just runs straight through, but however, we can put in individual breakpoints where we actually figure out what's happening at each line of code. So for instance, I can click right here. So I clicked in between the number and the edge on the editor, and notice it put up this little red stop sign and it highlights the line in red. This is to let me know that the program knows that when it gets to that line of code to stop and to let me see what's going on. Okay, and I can put one here as well. Now, generally, your breakpoints are going to be inside of your methods. It isn't going to be the name of the method itself. That's a little more difficult. So we're going to deal with basic debug mode in this lesson, and we'll handle advanced debug a little later. So I'm running this in debug mode already. So now if I go to my application and I pull up slash song form, it jumps me directly to my code, and see how it's highlighting line 14. That's because I'm on line 14 right now. It stopped my code. I don't show the form until line 15. That's when I tell it to display the template. So right now, on line 14, model exists because we declared it here. We said model is a variable of type model. But right now its size is 0. There's nothing inside of model. But if I click on this button right here, which is step over, which tells it to do everything on this line and then go to the next line. If I click that, it's now on the next line of code, and now notice that model is expandable and has a size of 1. And if I expand it, I can see that model has a variable of type named song, which if I expand it, I can see it is my song class that I defined here, which has a name, an artist, an album, a rating, and a year. And it has name, artist, album, rating, year, but all of these values are empty. That's what null means for a string. It means empty. So it has no value yet. So I haven't done anything with it yet. So if I go back to my controller, it still hasn't loaded the my template yet. But if I hit this button here, I can say resume program, and it'll keep running until it gets to the next breakpoint. So this is to go forward one line. This is to keep going until it hits the next breakpoint. And so I can go ahead and click that. And if I go back to my page, now it's actually brought up my form. And so I can go to my form and say 1999 by Prince on the album 1999. It was a 10, and I don't really know the year. We'll say it was 1986 for the sake of argument. So once I have this done and I hit submit, which means my form will get submitted back to the application, because it was submitting to the post mapping for slash song form, this is the one that catches it. And because the breakpoint is here, then it's already done everything on line 18. So I should have a variable called song, which I do, and I should have a variable called model, which I do. And inside the song variable, I can see all the values I just typed in. And inside the model value, I have everything that has. Now, what has happened is, because I've said at model attribute and it has the same name song that I had here, the values that got sent to the page actually make a round trip. So it already has a song item with values. But by adding this to it, I can update those values or change those values or what have you. So right now it already has the values that I passed through from the form. I can step over and he'll go forward. And if I go back to my page, it'll have the confirmation. But what I could do is I could do an extra step, is I could tell it song dot set year. Let's say it was actually 1984, not 1986. All right, so if I run my application in debug mode again, and actually I want to take this breakpoint out. I just want to load the form, and when I load the form, I didn't want it to stop me. Instead, I want it to stop me when I go back to submit it. So the song was 1999, the artist was Prince, the album was 1999, the rating was 10, and I'm saying that the year was 1986. And when I hit submit, it'll pop me down here automatically, because this is where I have my breakpoint set. And song, the year will say 1986, because that's what I have on the form. But once I step over this line, I just told song to set its year to 1984, and you can see the value here is now 1984. But if I look inside my model to its song item, its value is still here, because those things get updated automatically because the names are the same. I'm just doing this to make sure. We're gonna click over that. Notice it still doesn't bring up my page yet, because I haven't actually executed the line that tells it to load the page. But once I go ahead and run and go past that line, when I come back, it has my confirmation page, and I'm done. And that's using debug mode, the basics of using the debug mode for Java Spring Boot.